All right, welcome to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. Tonight, we're going to be diving into some fantasy baseball ADP. Something that AJ clearly thinks stands for awful drafting process based on his picks so far this year. So,
not what I think; it's what others think. Luckily for me,
Let's
I don't
get
care
to
what
it.
others think.
The Fantasy Six-Pack Hour with your hosts, Joe Bond and AJ Applegarth.
All right, so welcome into the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me to my, left on the screen, I guess, right? I'm all screwed up, Mike. What did you do to me? It's Corey Pieper. What's going on, man?
Not a whole lot. Exciting week here. Big baseball news. I got the spring breakouts game here on in the background, so watching no volume. Good game. It's good. How are you guys, man?
Good.
It's been a week, but and then
for you it has been a week.
Yeah,
I do have water, so that's a plus.
Yeah,
I have water again. I'm also not allowed to drink it, so that's pretty fun. Little did I know that if you get your well worked on, you have to have a chlorine tablet put in it, so you can't drink it for a week. Good times. AJ, what's going on, man?
Living in the land of the free and water-filled house, so I can drink my water. I don't have these issues, but I prefer to drink beverages that are made with water instead.
Yep. All right. So while you're here, before we get going, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that little bell. Get reminded that we're going on air. Join in the show live and leave those comments. We love hearing from you. Without further ado, though, let's bring in our guest, good friend of the show, Mr. Howard Bender. What's going on, man?
What's up, boys? Thanks so much for having me, man. Definitely a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes, welcome back.
All ours. We love having you on, man. Excuse me. Usually on for one football show, one baseball.
Joe's getting all choked up. I like that. Look at that. He's getting all emotional here now. Joe, you gonna cry?
Can you give us a topic first, Joe? Something to talk about? Getting a little
the Holy Roman Empire. It was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. Discuss.
His house cannot provide water, but his eyes sure can.
There it is.
Good one.
Served from the eye in the sky.
Mike finally got one. I like it.
Humor. You gotta love it.
All right. So before we jump into some ADP talk here, just got some news to cover. Howard, get your quick thoughts on a couple of these guys if you have anything. Of course, we got the Gerrit Cole news that dropped. Out for the year and then some next year for Tommy John. Alvarez out 6 to 8 weeks. Bobby Witt got hit by a pitch yesterday, so that's some scary news. Sounds like he might be all right, but we never know. Sometimes those things creep up on us and they surprise us. Lucas Giolito officially starting the season on the IL, and Jeff McNeil out 3 to 4 weeks with an oblique injury. What you got with any of these?
Well, I mean, listen. If I took Gerrit Cole in the Tout Wars saves plus holds league, their solds league. If I got one more person who tells me, oh well, I mean, this handwriting was on the wall for Gerrit Cole. Yeah, sure it was. I appreciate that. That's awfully nice of you to say. Thank you very much. But I mean, it is what it is. You move on from an injury like that. It's going to open up a roster spot here or a rotation spot for Will Warren, who's got, maybe a little late round upside if you're looking for somebody, kind of a deep play. Bobby Witt, I did hear also that he was going to be fine, no breaks, no fractures. So good there. They'll probably hold him out, a day or two here to just kind of let the swelling go down. That was definitely a scare. Happy that it didn't happen, other than that. Jeff McNeil, I wasn't using him in fantasy anyway, so I don't really care.
Yeah,
exactly. Corey or AJ, any thoughts on Francisco Alvarez? Like, I mean, he was sort of a, back end of the catcher one territory there.
Yeah, I had him last year in the OG league as a super late keeper, coming off of the last injury and thinking, oh, okay, well, why not? But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's I guess a hit to the Mets. It's definitely a hit to people who were waiting on catcher and hoping that he was going to be their guy. So 6 to 8 weeks is a decent amount of time to be without your number one catcher, assuming he was going to be it. So obviously need to pivot somewhere else on that.
He actually might be able to DH a little bit. The reason that they put the 6 to 8 week, because the injury that he's got is usually like a 4 to 6 week kind of a thing. But they gave him the extra time because it's his glove hand and the obvious pounding that the glove, that the hand takes there. They could actually end up DHing him and let Torrens catch for another couple of weeks if he's, So I definitely, I'm trying to stay optimistic with it. I cannot confirm nor deny that I have drafted him as well. But from everything that I'm kind of hearing out of Mets camp is that could be a nice little development. So look for when he's starts swinging in a cage, and that might be a little bit of a boost for you time wise.
Yeah.
Any worry that like this is another hand injury for him, and we saw a little bit of his, a down slope of his power last season. He's just dealt with so many like hand and thumb injuries. Like, just yet another one. Like, is that something we should be worried about?
I don't think so. I'll take this one. Last year it was a thumb. This is kind of a fluky hand injury. I'm not overly concerned that it's going to be something that is going to last his whole career or whatever, but I agree with Howard. I think that part of it is just the wear and tear that he's going to take on that hand. We'll see him back sooner, but it'll be as a DH. And just to jump back to the Jeff McNeil injury for a second here, not Jeff McNeil, but someone has to fill second base. And I think it's going to be Brett Beatty, who adds a viable second base option, especially he's going to start with third base eligibility only. But I think he's going to play second for him. And he's had a red hot spring as he's tried to win that third base job from Mark Vientos, a couple home runs, hitting 370. I'm taking Brett Beatty late now in any 15-team league, as he might have second and third eligibility, so corner and middle infield. That's where I'm pivoting in that one.
No worry about Luis Angel Acuna.
I was just going to bring him up.
I didn't think he was going to make the team even. Now that there's a spot, I think he'll make the team, but I'm not worried that. I think Brett Beatty at least gets the first look to start.
Yeah,
probably.
Acuna, little brother, more like a utility guy right now. But all right, let's jump into some ADP talk, shall we? So what we did here is I looked at in ADP. I think like the end of like a week before the end of February through like the first few days of March, and then the first few days of March through today, to kind of do a comparison to see risers and fallers. And of course, we'll start with the injuries. These are obviously the biggest movers of all, and for good reason. I'm just going to rattle off the names. And Howard, just get your thoughts on like really any of these guys, just your strategy approaching these guys as now we know that they're injured, right? We got Grayson Rodriguez dropping 127 spots. He's going he's going around 244 right now. Sean Murphy is around 358. We got Francisco Alvarez going around 229. George Kirby's dropped all the way to 119. Spencer Steer, 182. Let's see here. Rafael Devers, 39. Not as far of a drop for him. Just a few, 4 or 5 spots, but does seem to be a little bit of worry there with him. Gunnar Henderson, also not as far, down to 10 from about 5 or 6. Other names, Jerson Profar has dropped about 10 spots to 179. Nico Horner, about 15 spots to 208. And Parker Meadows, now that it's getting closer to the season, it sounds like he's not going to be ready, has dropped all the way to 274. So, what's your thoughts on kind of like drafting these guys? Are you buying the dip on any of these guys? And if so, like who?
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, I'm definitely, there are certain guys that you can take advantage of who are, kind of falling out. And what's the reason behind them falling out is something to kind of check in. Spencer Steer, I am more than happy to get me some Spencer Steer. Right? If you can give me a first baseman that I can plug in that can steal 20 bases, like I'll do that. He took a cortisone shot into the shoulder. They say he'll probably, he'll start the season on the IL. If I'm going to lose 2 weeks, 3 weeks even, I'll tell you what, if I miss a month of a hitter, I'm okay with it if I know that it's a quality player. I'm totally fine with it because you're still getting 5 months out of the season. And it's a long season. So, to miss that first month, you're still, you're spending the first 2 weeks of the regular season juggling your waiver wire, trying to figure out who's going to win this position battle, who's going to win that position battle, who's starting off super hot and who's going to be, who's starting off ice cold. You're still kind of working through that. So to know that, you've always got a guy like a Spencer Steer sitting in the hopper waiting for you, I'm perfectly fine, with that. And then, I just did the FSGA draft the other night, 14-teamer. I was picking on the wheel and they left me Gunnar Henderson. So stupid. Like, you got to look into it, right? You talk about he's already swinging a bat in the cage. He's already taking ground balls. If I miss 2 weeks of Gunnar Henderson because they're going to baby him to, keep him healthy, 5.5 months of Gunnar Henderson is elite level talent. So I'm not worried about, him getting his swing back or something like that. Because again, according to Mike Elias, president of baseball ops for the Orioles, he's going to be fine. He's not showing any ill effects, whatever. And they're taking him slowly because it is an intercostal strain. And you just want to make sure that he's perfectly fine there and that he doesn't get into the cage too soon. You want it to heal and then you put him in the cage. So, I'll buy the dip on certain guys like that. If people are going to just, let them fall that far, I'm happy to grab them.
So I'm completely with you on Spencer Steer. He has fallen way too far, in my opinion. And I've gotten him the last couple of drafts I've been in, the Fantasy Six-Pack Series and Raz Slam. I've gotten him in both. So I'm perfectly happy with the draft cost of him. He actually went around 200-ish in Raz Slam.
So great.
It's a best ball league, too. Like, there's 42 roster spots. I was like, yeah, I could eat one for a month. Who cares?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
AJ, any of these other guys that you're comfortable taking at the draft cost? Like, we talked about Gunnar. Like, what about these pitchers? Like, the two that obviously pop out here, Grayson Rodriguez and George Kirby. Like,
yeah,
super unknowns with their injuries. Like, we really don't know. Like, would it surprise you at all if Grayson Rodriguez all of a sudden had to get Tommy John? Would it surprise you if George Kirby got shut down for like months with that shoulder injury? Perfectly honest, I wouldn't be at all. But
no, I don't.
Their
think
draft cost has plummeted.
Yeah, I'm okay taking either one of them at the new cost because what these guys can do, and Kirby especially. I would shoot for him more than Rodriguez, obviously, because the Tommy John is looming, and that I'm hoping it doesn't go that way. But if he has to eat an IR spot for me or IL spot for a little bit, I'm okay doing that, especially with where you can get him now. Same thing with Kirby. I think I'd be safer. In my mind, would be going for Kirby. But yeah, the injuries suck. I never like going for guys that are, prone with these injuries and dealing with shoulders. Shoulders always scare me. It's like a 1A for me for an elbow as one. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on, but I don't have any problem taking these guys at their cost right now.
Yeah,
Corey?
I agree with AJ on the one that I'm willing to take is Kirby at the price. I'm not overly concerned about the shoulder. I think he pitches again by May or around May. So I will take Kirby at the dip. I'm not really touching Grayson Rodriguez at all. I don't really have a whole lot of confidence in that one, even with the dip. The other one that I'm buying, I got Rafael Devers in the middle of the 4th round in the most recent draft I did. I realize the shoulders are concerning. I just know what he can do when he's healthy. He battled that shoulder last season, still put up a pretty top end season. I think if I get 135 games of Rafael Devers, he's going to outperform the 4th round. So any dip I get on Rafael Devers, I'll buy that in the 4th round absolutely all day, every day.
Yeah, I did a show with Joe Orico today. It was recorded. We did like a third base breakdown, and I think we were looking at the main event ADP right now. And the ADP, there's only been 4 drafts, but his ADP at the main event right now is like, I want to say like around 50.
Yeah,
which was like, oh my goodness, like, yeah, I'll take that all day.
Yeah.
So they just need to convince him like not to play the field and just DH and be okay with it. So
it's fine with me.
Yeah,
He still has third base eligibility this year. As long as he's batting, I don't really care if he plays the field or not. He was terrible at it. So as long as he's up to bat every day, fine.
Absolutely. All right. AJ?
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Let's
jump into the risers here that we're looking at. And first guy that we have listed here is Mr. Wyatt Langford. I mean, he is he's like the new darling, I feel like, for fantasy this year. Everybody seems to be wanting a piece of him, me included. And Howard, what do you think of Langford? He was at 41, I guess now he's up to 37.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a huge Wyatt Langford fan. Jim Bowden sits there and he goes to, he's like sat in Rangers camp and he's like really sat and watched Wyatt Langford play. And, we were super bullish on him, last season as his, for his rookie campaign. Obviously he started off super slow, to get going. But I mean, that second half that he had, I mean, what do you have? Like 10, 11 home runs. I mean, he only hit 250, which is, whatever. But, the production was there. You saw the growth. You saw the adjustments that he was making facing, the starting pitching that he was finally facing. So, I think where we're taking him, I think he's coming in probably like late 3rd in a 15-teamer, early 4th round in a 12-teamer. And I'm great with that. You get a good power speed combo. He's not overwhelming you on either side, but you know that there's steady growth coming from him. So, when a kid, shows that he's willing to learn and makes that necessary adjustment mid-season, you got to love on that. So I'm in on Langford for sure.
Yeah. Corey, what do you think?
Well, I think the explanation for his ADP rising is just now that he's healthy. Remember, he came right after spring training started. He had the oblique injury, and now he is playing in games, and he's off hitting well. He's already got a home run. He's 5 for 8 last I checked, it looks like. So he's off and playing. So that's part of the reason that his ADP is climbing. I'm okay paying the price of 37, but I'd rather have had him at the back end of that round than early in the 3rd round, just off the fact that we really only saw Howard mentioned the second half. It was really just the month of September. He was incredible in the month of September. The rest of it was not a whole lot to build off of. I was hoping to get him more around pick 60, but I understand why it's pushing up.
Yeah. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of more agree with Corey on this one. Like, I do have some reservations with him, and maybe because I rostered him, I kind of bought into it last year, and I got snake bit by it a little bit, But I try not to let that happen, but unfortunately, it does. We are human. I get the potential, right? But I am a little worried that now at this draft cost, we're basically paying for near ceiling with him. And so that's tough. That's tough to do when the guy's never done it yet. It's all based off, just hope that he can get there. So,
we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm still interested in him. Steamer's got him projected for 20 plus homers. 77 runs, 78 RBIs, nearly 20 steals. I mean, again, I think you're right on with that it's that seems like ceiling is 2020, maybe 25 if he stays healthy all year. But I'm okay paying the cost right now, I think.
I will transition us here to our next ADP riser, and that is another player who came on strong at the second half of last season. That is Lawrence Butler. In the second half last year, 13 home runs, 12 stolen bases, and hit 300, showing that 25-25 is within the realm of possibility. ADP is climbing a little bit. It was at 61. It is now at 56, so that is in the fourth round here of a 15-team league. What do you feel about that value, Howard?
Well, I mean, I think it's fair value. Butler again. Very solid hitter. I think the ADP is obviously it's going to continue to climb up a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of buzz about him, but even more so, there's a lot of buzz about the ballpark in Sacramento. When you take away all that foul territory at the Oakland Coliseum, you take, just the general dimensions of that outfield. It's such a cavernous, spacious outfield. And then you're adding so much foul territory there that, it's where hitters go to die. Unless you're putting it over the fence every single time, it's problematic. So now that they're going to be in Sacramento, minor league ballpark, part of the PCL, everybody knows the PCL, the Pacific Coast League, is the most hitter friendly of all the AAA leagues that they've got. So I'm looking at the at Butler being at fair value there in round 4. It's kind of funny. I think for the ballpark's sake, I'm not going to say bullish, but you take certain guys off of certain power hitters or guys who are just going to hit you some home runs off of the A's and the Rays, right? The Rays are going to be playing at Legends Field the whole time, outdoors, and all that humidity. The ball's just going to sail. It's going to be crazy over there. So, I think I'm maybe just more bullish because of the park factors on these guys. But, Lawrence Butler will be, if he's there for me to take him in that fourth round, I'd probably go for it.
I like it. Joe, where are you at on Lawrence Butler?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I like this draft cost a little bit more than Langford for some reason. It obviously it's a couple, it's a round or so cheaper. But I feel like he could be relatively the same player as Langford when you really think about it. Like we just talked about Langford being what, like a 20-20 guy, 25-20 guy. Mm-hmm. What's Lawrence Butler? He's like the same thing. The problem with Butler is the offense he's in. Now I know there is some hope that this offense will be a little bit better, a little bit stronger this year overall, but at the same time, when you're looking at Texas offense versus the Athletics offense, the counting stats might not be there exactly for Butler like they would be for Langford. That would be the one hesitation I have. And but what he did last year was nothing short of amazing. He did have a bit of a cold stretch right at I believe the beginning of September. It was kind of like he could not hit the ball for like a week, it felt like. And so, you worry that maybe there's a little bit more of that in his game a little bit, but, short sample size. Hopefully he'll figure things out. They got the contract talks going, so obviously the A's believe in him. So that there's something, I think that also is driving his ADP cost up too. Like when the team really wants to, spend money on you, maybe, that kind of tells you something, right?
Yeah, so. I definitely, I do like Butler, and I felt that, downturn of not hitting in September last year in my fantasy playoffs. That was not fun. But
you mean both?
Yeah, it had to happen, I guess. But his stats, right, homers and steals, right in line with those steamer projections for Langford. So, and that's only 125 games. For me, his thing is can he stay on the field? Can he stay healthy? I'm hoping he gets that opportunity to be the everyday player this year that he should be. So I can see those, games and plate appearances definitely heading northward. And for, a fourth round pick, I think it depends on where I start my draft. I want to say, like, if he's my second outfielder, maybe even third, then I'm definitely going
a lot of
heavy.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. In 3 rounds, I would say he's probably going to be my second, look at an outfielder. I don't know if I'm confident enough to take him as my my outfielder one, but
Yeah.
I don't mind the draft cost.
Well, let's
I
move
took
on
him-
here. Sorry.
I was going to mention that I took him in our fantasy 6-pack series, but I also got him at 59, so it was a little lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that league also has OBP factored in, and he does not walk a whole ton, so that's not helping his cause there. So that I understand the slight dip there. But let's move on here to a guy who his ADP is rising a little bit farther down the list here, all the way down at 242, has moved up to 228. We're talking a good like 6% jump here, and it is Christian Encarnacion-Strand of the Reds. I mean, look, I get it's not a high draft cost. I'm not really sure I understand the rise at all. Like, I don't know where he's going to play and play regularly. Like the Reds team is pretty loaded. I guess with the Steer injury, maybe people are thinking he's going to find more room. But I mean, they've already got him squeezed out, even despite that injury. So I don't know, Howard. What's your thoughts here on
I think what we're looking at is I don't think the Reds really want Candelario playing first, right? Tyler Stevenson's banged up, so he's whatever. Steer is going to probably miss a couple of weeks there, and so Encarnacion-Strand is at least going to get the opportunity. I think one of the big reasons why he's moving up is, I mean, just look at what that position looks like from a draft standpoint. If you don't get one of the top 5 guys, right, then where are you looking? Then you're like, okay, next best really, tier wise is like Christian Walker, Tristan Cassis,
Josh Naylor, Vinny P.
Yeah, Naylor, Pasquantino. Like you're sitting in that kind of in that realm. And then the question is how important is it to you to grab one of those guys? And if you miss one of those guys, what the hell happens then? Then you're like, okay, well, Mountcastle, if they're moving the fences in there, and Nathaniel Lowe is going to get some work over in Washington. So it's a pretty gross looking position if you don't get one of those top 5 guys, because even that second tier doesn't enamor me too much either. So I think that's partial, what you're getting is like there's just some scarcity at the first base positions, which I think kind of unnerves a lot of people, because for years, the first base position was always flush with talent. Now here in the last, 2-3 seasons, 4 seasons maybe, like all of a sudden it's such a top-heavy position.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of the infield is that way outside of shortstop. Like shortstop's still very top heavy because of the super elite players we have there, but there is loaded full of other very talented players. Every other position in the infield right now is like, I'm good with the first 4, then I don't want any of you. But that's the problem. There's at least 12 people in most leagues, so if someone's gonna suck at at least a few of those positions. So yeah, I get it. I don't know. I'm not really eager to take a guy who might have the job, but I mean at that draft cost, I guess if you're going that far, you're looking, these NFBC leagues, you got to shoot for the moon sometimes. So I get it.
Especially also if you're looking for your corner infield spot, right? Like I don't think he's being drafted as your first baseman. I think you're hoping that he's gonna DH, gonna get some first base work, and you can have like a decent power guy at a corner spot. And of course, everybody, it's like man, I was just going to say, some jokes you just can't make these days. But, at like 4 o'clock in the morning when the lights come up in the bar and you're like, yeah, that'll do. That's Christian Encarnacion-Strand, right? Yeah. You're like, I could use a little bit of power. Yeah, all right, you'll do. You'll be okay. Right? And because, everybody gets a second look, right? If they're playing in Cincinnati. Right, you're always going to get it's like a Colorado Rockies hitter, right? You're always going to give a second look to Nolan Jones because he plays in Coors Field. You're always going to give that second look. Those when the lights come up at 4 o'clock in the morning, the certain assets that you're looking for in a player.
Yeah, I'm just looking for a player that can cross the finish line and get home. Because then I'm hitching a ride on that. He's already got more home runs in spring training than he had all of last year. 3 versus 2, but he's also hitting close to 300. So he is kind of hot right now, and I'm willing to buy in on that, especially for his draft cost where he is. But I would be looking at him more as that corner infielder or possible utility, just kind of not everyday player, but somebody to fill in roster spots as long as he's playing. And if he's playing hot, then he can stay in the roster. So
yeah, I think the problem with guys like that is in those weekly league formats, it's like, man, platooning or like playing every other day, like, is that enough? That's what I always worry with in those kind of formats. So I don't know. Andrew, let's move on here. We've got
all right. Let's go into the hottest name possibly coming into this season, and that is the Dodgers' Roki Sosaki. He is rising all the way up to 88 ADP right now from originally at 109. Pretty big jump, but I mean, what are you seeing out of Sosaki so far? Do you think this is warranted, Howard?
I don't know. I'm not. I think he's a very talented pitcher, and I think coming over and having Ohtani and Yamamoto on the roster already makes it a more comfortable for him. But I mean, look at the way the Dodgers are built. They're built to throw a 6-man rotation down there. They've got they're a good 8 or 9 starters deep, and at some point Ohtani's going to pitch, and at some point Kershaw's going to come back and he's going to pitch, and at some point Tony Gonsolin's going to be back, and you still have Dustin May, who was just mentioned as the 5th starter. So I think the thing about it is because also Sosaki has never had the workload of American baseball, right? He's always, his innings have been not capped, but he's plays fewer games in Japan. And so I think that they're going to manage the workload. I think Dave Roberts is going to manage this entire team in order to try and keep everybody healthy. So I could definitely see very few 2-start weeks for Sosaki, and I could see them just kind of, slowing him down a little bit. And, so that to me, that's kind of why I'm avoiding him. I mean, I've got a share or two of him just to have it, right? Just to see how it feels. But I'm not banking on too much from him. I think he's very talented, but I'm not going to push him up my draft board.
Yeah. Joe, what do you think?
I'm in complete agreement. I've actually faded every single Dodgers pitcher. At their cost, they're all going to get shut down at some point. They're going to get, we like to say AJ Dodgered, right? They're going to go on the IL because, they got something in their eye or something. I don't know. It's just, feels like they make stuff up, and it's going to happen because they're just loaded. They're loaded. They could literally roster an entire other team's starting pitching rotation. It feels like. So do I want to deal with that? And I don't. And so I'm out, especially with this rise in cost. I mean, we're talking like a 20% jump in his ADP.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And Chad brought up the point here in the chat here, his pitches in the spring training, the metrics on them look fantastic. And just people are just drooling over it. Just, oh my gosh, what's this guy going to be? He's going to be amazing. And be careful with that.
Yeah. Corey?
On a per inning basis, I think he's going to be awesome. I think that's everyone said. I think he's going to be great. The splitter looks amazing. It's maybe the best splitter in the game already. It drops off a table, has no spin on it at all. It almost moves like a knuckleball. But he's now ahead of even players on the Dodgers I'd rather have. On a per inning basis, I think Tyler Glasnow will be better than Roki Sosaki. And I think Tyler Glasnow probably pitches more innings than Roki Sosaki. And he goes 4 or 5 rounds later. I'd rather have Tyler Glasnow. I think Sosaki is probably capped at 110-ish, 120 innings tops. I think people forget he had an arm injury last year. He was pitching with an arm injury. We don't talk about that.
Dude, they told him to have when he was playing for what was it, the Chibalot Marines.
Yeah.
They were like, you should have Tommy John surgery. And he was like, rest in rehab. I'll be okay.
I want to wait it through. So we'll see. I'll be shocked if in the next 2 years he doesn't have some type of Tommy John surgery. So I hope he does. I hope he doesn't, but no, I'm not taking him at 88 or whatever we're at now. Nope.
Yeah, it's a massive jump for me, and Yeah, like I'm just afraid of the dodgering. It's gonna happen. We see it every year. And he's only he had 111 innings last year. Maybe part of that was from the injury or not, or just because it's a shallower league, game wise. 91 the year before that, and then 129 a third. So that's nothing for the MLB. Like, that's not something you can depend on for what you're going to have to pay up, especially now, to get him. So I'll let him be someone else's problem.
I will take the next starting pitcher here that is rising up in ADP, and this one is not as high as Roki Sosaki, but Gavin Williams has jumped from 233 to 202 on having the best spring training, I think, of any pitcher that I can think of. 8 innings. He has allowed 1 earned run. He has struck out 16 in 8 innings for a 50% strikeout rate to only 2 walks. He is getting a lot of hype right now. Is the hype warranted, Howard?
I like seeing the strikeout rate back. Like, that was always, kind of a concern, because when he was, down in the minors, he was striking everybody out, right? And you were encouraged by it. Then he gets up into the major leagues, and all of a sudden it's less than strikeout per inning. And that was kind of concerning. Now, I know he's dealt with some injuries here and there, and that's kind of limited him, in certain aspects. But like, he's one of those guys who I think, like, you're sitting there and it's like the 15th round and he's sitting there on the board and you've already got like 4 solid starters. Then, you turn around and you're like, yes, Gavin Williams is a guy who I could definitely take a chance on. I also love where he pitches, right? It's not so much the home park. It's the rest of that division, which is just so bad. So yeah, I dig some Gavin Williams. Again, it's not somebody that you have to push up, right? That's the good thing about it. As nice of a spring as he's having, you get so many people who are like, I'm not buying into springtime numbers, right? Guys had an ERA between like 4 and 5 for the last 2 seasons. What are we going to do with him? So I like the fact that, if you know what he's about, then he's a good guy to hold on to and grab in those, middle rounds of your draft. And if you don't, then that's great. I love that your ignorance.
Take advantage of the ignorance always. AJ, are you willing to invest in Gavin Williams? Oh, I think you're muted there, bud.
Sorry. Yeah, I think so. I do like his, his stuff, I guess, whatever it is that he actually has. Still maybe TBD, but he is having a good spring, like Howard said. And that cost, for that division, I love going after pitchers in, the AL Central, because that league is pretty abysmal. It's just something where you can get good value out of all of the team's pitchers, except maybe, the White Sox. But even then, especially now that Crochet's gone. So, yeah, I like Williams. I'm willing to take the jump on him.
Joe, another person ready to take the jump. He also had some elbow stuff last year, too, kind of like Sosaki.
Yeah, I'm good with it. Yes, I will take spring training with a grain of salt. It is still pitching against a lot of other minor leaguers, which is where he had all of the strikeout success. So don't expect this to carry over into the season, not at this rate. But yeah, you like to see it more than you would like. You definitely want to see this more than the other way around, right? So definitely give him that. Yeah, I have no issues taking him at 200. At this point, who are we drafting down there? Not a whole lot. So take a chance on a guy who's had success in the minors, having a great spring. Pretty much has a rotation spot locked up. So yeah, I'm all in on that one.
I like it. The next guy, though, the one that you're about to do, another guy you could take around 200.
Yeah, absolutely. So Clay Holmes over here, moving up from 246 to 213. So right around the same amount of jump here. Howard, what's your thoughts on Clay Holmes and why the rise? And are you good with it?
No, I'm not good with it. I don't know why it's rising, because everybody suddenly thinks that Clay Holmes is going to throw 150 innings this year. Like, maybe it's because Gerrit Crochet did not shut down last year and didn't have, didn't have some limits on him. I don't think Clay Holmes is a good enough pitcher to sit there and say that here's a guy who's averaged 65 innings per season over the last 3 years, that all of a sudden you're going to break him out as a starter and the dude's going to give you 150 innings. I'm not buying it. I can't buy it. I won't buy it. And I'm definitely out on him completely. I mean, if you're talking about like Crochet, at least showed like massive talent, brilliant strikeout rate. Clay Holmes lost his job as the closer because he couldn't deal with the job, right? I mean, he kept giving up home runs. So I'm out on him as a starter completely out. No bueno.
Corey.
I'm not as far out as Howard is. I can appreciate Clay Holmes for what he's doing, but I do agree it's a little higher. I liked him much more at the original cost than I do at this cost. I don't know, 150 I don't think you're going to get. I do think we can get like 115 to 20 just because now the Mets don't have a whole lot left right now to use, regardless of Clay Holmes, with the injuries to Montas and others. So they need to get some innings out of Clay Holmes here. I do like the ground ball tendencies that he's always had, getting a lot of ground balls out of his stuff. Those home runs that cost him his game, the closing gig with the Yankees. One inning is always such a weird sample size. They can really throw off a lot of stuff. He's still at a 3.14 ERA. I know I see the comparisons to Michael King as this stepping into the starting rotation. I don't think we're going to get Michael King, but I think, a 4 or 5 starter for your fantasy team, somebody who can give you a decent option every so often at the back of your rotation. I'm good with that, but no, I'm not expecting star turn here for Clay Holmes or anything like that.
AJ?
Yeah, no thanks. What nothing to do with Clay Holmes. I've never really liked Clay Holmes. Yeah, maybe it was partially because he was a Yankee, but moving to the Mets doesn't help that for me. So, I no, can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder how secure that starting role is anyway. They do have injuries. Once those guys start coming back, I think eventually they're gonna, they'll find somebody to because they're gonna need depth at some point. They're gonna need replacement arms. They're not gonna be able to roll with Canning and all these guys for a full season. So they're gonna bring in other people. So I'm not fully sold that his spot is fully secure as a starter, but but Howard, I want to ask you a follow-up question. We had a ton of other risers on the and they were all starters, or actually even more so relievers. Why do you see this late rise in starting pitching?
Unfortunately, I didn't get what that question was because your sound was getting a little wonky there at the end.
I think he's down in the well trying to fix the pipe.
Oh, what a callback there.
That was great.
AJ.
That was a good one.
That any better?
No,
Yeah.
much better.
Yeah, you sound better now.
So we had a whole bunch of people on the risers list highlighted, probably about 25 players. 18 of them were pitchers, either starters and then even more so relievers. Why do you think as we're getting closer to the season, we're seeing this rise in pitching?
From what I've seen in the number of drafts that I've done, you're getting a lot of guys who are going heavy with the with the hitting first. Like you don't see rising ADPs with any of the top 20 starters, right? Because they're still going in the second, the third, and the fourth round. But now all of a sudden, what I'm seeing in a lot of drafts, and I'm guilty of it as well, people are going 6-7 rounds without taking a single starting pitcher. And what happens is that like all of a sudden, it starts to elevate. It's not that they're mediocre starters. It's just that tier kind of jumps up a little bit because now, they're going after, certain guys in like the 8th and the 9th and the 10th round. And then when they say, okay, I need, better quality starting pitching, then the bottom tier, the lower tiers start to creep up a little bit more. So you're going to start seeing, pitching, and again, it's outside, it's beyond the top 20 or 30 starters where you're seeing it, but you're going to see a general kind of rise for all that starting pitching. And you're going to start seeing like a lot of, you're probably going to see like a lot of like makeshift outfielders, guys who don't really have like full-time jobs, like a Jake Fraley or a Jesse Winker. Like, you're going to start seeing those guys dropping more because people are going to be like, oh, I'm not worried about them. I've got this ridiculously insane offense. I'm going to have to match it with my pitching.
Yeah. You're right. Like the ADP for a lot of the early starters and early pitchers isn't really rising a lot, but it is moving in that direction, even so slightly. Like, and you're talking like the 40th pick. If it moves a few spots, that's a pretty big move for just those guys. I've got Chris Sale, Crochet, Hader, Diaz, Helsley, Yamamoto, Iglesias, Mason Miller, Bautista, all moving. Anywhere between like 3 to 10 spots in ADP. And at their draft costs, like that ends up being a big percentage move for their ADP. And so you are seeing a slight move even on those kind of upper echelon guys. It is a very curious. I kind of understand the relief pitching thing just because like as you get closer to the season, I was telling AJ this, and it's the NFBC syndrome. It really is. Everybody just has to get their closers. And so as you get closer to the season, those relief pitcher costs just are skyrocketed. And I get it because those weekly leagues, the fab leagues, you don't get your saves guys. You're having to spend like half your fab on the closers the whole year. It feels like. So I get it, but it was just an interesting trend when we were looking at the numbers that we noticed all these pitchers were moving. Yeah. They were the risers. So we were like, we can't talk about all these guys. The show would be 3 hours.
I was just trying to group them all together, and I got it highlighting, and I'm like, wait a minute, like they're all. I think a lot of the movement, all I'm seeing.
I think a lot of the movement just being pitchers is that we don't have so much like Statcast and spin rate data, and we can do that on just a few pitches where we're at 30. If you've played a regular amount of games right now for spring training, you're at 30 at bats. That's a week's worth of games. Whereas for pitchers, we can make more of an assumption off of like 9 innings than you can off of 30 at bats. So Clay Holmes pushes up on 9 innings, something like that. Whereas someone who's 10 for 30, Christian Encarnacion-Strand, do I think that's going to last? No, but I think there's a chance that Clay Holmes on 9 innings pitched, showing what he did, like that should last. So that's where I'm at on pitching. But I also agree with Howard. Like I did a draft this past weekend where I didn't touch a starting pitcher till the 10th round, and I walked away with Jack Flaherty, Kevin Gausman, Luis Heel, Nick Pivetta, and Robbie Ray. I'm fine with that. I'll roll with that.
Yeah. I think the other thing you're seeing is because the big injuries we've had, right, are to the pitchers. And so when you lose a Cole, Kirby drops because of his injury. Grayson Rodriguez drops because of his injury. There's a little bit more of a panic of, now there's less of the top tier pitching group that I really enjoyed. So I've got to go get one before it runs out. So a little bit of supply and demand. So, all right, let's jump into our fallers and wrap this up.
All right. So starting with the fallers here, we've got a couple of boring names from the outfield, but fairly reliable guys, and that's Brian Reynolds and Ian Happ. Reynolds is coming from 90 down to 95 ADP right now. Happ was up at 119, and now he's fallen down to 124. Howard, what do you think is causing this with these outfielders?
Maybe because they're so boring, right? Like, I mean, the bloom is off the rose with regard to Brian Reynolds. I think. I mean, I just he's good. He's okay. Is there anything special? He doesn't steal a ton of bags, right? Doesn't hit a ton of home runs, right? Even the batting average is just, it's good. It's not phenomenal. So, I think that's just kind of, where we're at right now. I mean, everybody's, there's so many guys up top that have that, that power speed combo. And then when you start moving into the middle tiers, you still have certain guys that you're kind of eyeballing, right? Like Sedani Rafaela, just for an example. He's still, we're projecting him as like a 15-15 guy. And that's where I think where everybody's at. So like all of a sudden you get like a guy like Brian Reynolds, he's a little on the boring side because he doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot for you. I mean, he's, a fine guy to have, right? I mean, I'd be content with him as my third or fourth outfielder, but he doesn't, wow me enough. And I think that's kind of where we're at because now we're getting like everybody's just, shooting for that power speed combo and then using the late rounds to, pick up where they're, lacking. Like if you're lacking power, all of a sudden you can pull out like a Paul DeYoung or a Reese Hoskins. Like these guys are just going to hit you 20 to 25 home runs, regardless of whatever else they do. Like you get that. So why do I want Brian Reynolds production at his ADP if I know I can get similar production much later on?
Yeah. Corey?
Oh, Brian Reynolds is my guy. I'll take the I'll take the boring,
the little tear.
the boringness of Brian Reynolds.
I'm sorry, Corey.
That's okay. No, I understand. I get it. Everything you said is dead spot on. Is there anything flashy with Brian Reynolds? Not really, but he's gonna play every day. There's no one coming for that spot. He's gonna sit in the top 3 in the lineup. You're gonna get 85 runs scored. You're going to get 25 home runs. You're going to get 80 plus RBIs. He might pitch in 10 steals, and it's going to be with a competent batting average. I like that as my outfielder 3. So I'm perfectly fine taking Brian Reynolds at pick. What are we at now? 95? Sure. It's a third outfielder. He's not going to hurt me anywheres. He might help in a few places. And I like bankable production out of a player I can get at that point. So give me Brian Reynolds. Ian Happ. Ian Happ's a little different. Ian Happ is he is someone who is so streaky. He goes on wild hot streaks and wild cold streaks. So if you're playing in a roto league and you just know that at the end of the year it'll be there, you got to ride some cold streaks. But if it's a weekly matchup where you're playing head to head, he's going to lose you some weeks. I'm telling you. Now he'll win you some weeks too, but he is ridiculously hot and cold. So Hap, not really my guy, but Brian Reynolds, I just love the boring guys. What can I say? That's my thing.
I'm with you, Corey. We talked about this when we were doing the Earth League together. Brian Reynolds popped up on the list. We were like, we both just kind of looked at it like, it's Brian Reynolds. Like, is there really nothing better? There kind of wasn't. So we just took it. Boring can win you leagues. It really can. Like, again, just like you said, it is reliable production. There's a ton of other guys around him who, you can look at him and go, yeah, they have much higher ceilings, but whoo, baby, those floors are also much, much lower. And as my third outfielder, in every single league, he's been my third outfielder that I've gotten him in, or he would have been my third outfielder had I taken him. Just it's money in the bank for me. I love it, especially with that batting average. Like, you get a batting average of that caliber that late in the draft. Or at that point in the draft, that's not really late, but at that point in the draft, that's hard to find. There's not a lot of dudes that can produce like that with that batting average at that point. So that's why I like him.
Yeah, I agree with Howard. They're boring. I just don't know if I can do it. I've had more shares of Reynolds in the past than Hap. They're basically the same age. Hap's got a few months on Reynolds, but you know what you're getting, and it's just kind of like, okay, I'll plug these guys in. Whatever, it is what it is.
I would say this next outfielder that I'm about to talk about is not boring. It is kind of a hot and cold runner here, and that is Adolis Garcia, who has dropped from 136 to 148. So we've gotten 4 consecutive seasons of 25 home runs. He snuck over it last season, but the strikeouts are always high, at least 27%. And last season that bottomed out with a 224 batting average and a 284 on base percentage. Now he's slipping a little bit in drafts. Howard, are you willing to take him at pick 148?
I mean, I guess I would. I mean, I don't. Again, I don't love him. You know, I mean, if he was stealing 25 bags again, then I'd be into it. But with the batting average drop and it's just some power, and the stolen bases are lagging. I don't know. Maybe I'd like to think that maybe things kind of tick up a little bit more for the Texas Rangers this year, and last year, like Seager started off hurt and Evan Carter struggled and Wyatt Langford struggled in the first half. And Marcus Semien was, had a relatively down season for himself. So, when I look at that aspect, maybe if they start off strong, that maybe Garcia is somebody who you could be interested in. Again, I'm not going to say he's boring, but I don't love him that much.
Yeah, I agree. AJ, where you at, man?
I'm at the same spot there with Garcia. He really, was a thorn in my ass last year, and I just, I'd rather not sit on another thorn again. The strikeouts, I knew that they were going to be there, but it was very frustrating to just continue to watch them, especially in the points leagues that I had him in, where I would get docked for strikeouts. So that was super annoying, and it soured me on him. And then the average just wasn't there. 243, 250, 245 from 21 to 23. Not the best, but you can deal with that. A 224 and an on-base percentage at 284 last year was just so abysmal. And, I struggled to just cut ties with him, because it's a name guy. I was waiting for the turnaround, never really came. I finally did cut him and was fine with it. I just figured someone else was going to jump on him. Then they were going to, cash in on the uptick for him. And I didn't want to see that either, but ultimately I just had to cut ties. And I mean, at the current draft cost, I don't know. Maybe I'm a sucker for punishment, but I don't know. I'll have to see how my team is at that point if I'm going to really dive in and go for it again.
Joe, you in on Adolis?
I'm not. Even with the discount here, it's not a guy I'm interested in. We've seen him decline pretty much every year. Like, yeah, I know we got the power spike in 2023. So you're like, all right, if he's going to give me 39 home runs and we're going to lose the 25 steals, but he's still going to give me almost double digits, you were okay with that. But man, then the home runs dropped again, and the stolen bases didn't go up. And if you look at his StatCast data, like his sprint speed is dropping every year too. So, like, I'm not really confident that the steals are coming back. And so when you lose that part of his game, I mean, that's why it was so intriguing. You dealt with the really crappy plate discipline because he was a 25-25 guy. And now I don't think he's close to that. I think you're looking at a 25-30 home run guy possibly still, but I think you're looking at best, maybe 10 steals. And I think like a 230, 235 batting average is probably what we're looking at here.
Fair.
He's sneaky old. So, 20 since he was a rookie at 28, so he is 32 already. So that speed is not coming back. He is sneaky old.
No.
I did not realize he was that old until I was doing this.
I was just looking at that and was like trying to figure out like why is he slowing down so much? Oh,
yeah,
he's old.
I mean, sprint speed of in 36th percentile last year. That's not coming back. I'm sorry. So, all right. So we're gonna pair another couple of these guys together, and there's some players, Howard, that got hurt during spring training, but seem like they're back, and I almost feel like the ADP hasn't like corrected itself to the back yet. But Brennan Nimmo has dropped from 167 to 193, and Tyler O'Neill 176 to 192. Like, are you with me there that like the ADP probably should be shifted back the other way again with these guys, or do you think now it's kind of where it should be?
I think it's kind of where it should be. I've seen Tyler O'Neill slipping, in drafts left and right. I mean, again, more or less a one-trick pony who had, some down moments last season. Listen, I think moving the fences in Baltimore is going to kind of give a little bit of a boost overall to the team. But yeah, again, I don't mind Nimmo. I'd like to see Nimmo. I'd like to see them try and experiment with him in the leadoff spot. I don't think it's going to happen because you got Lindor there, and Nimmo's going to probably stay hitting like 6th or 7th in that lineup. So that doesn't, excite me. If they were to bat him 9th, I might actually be a little bit more interested in Nimmo because, once you get through that first round of the order, then he's like a second leadoff hitter right in front of Lindor and then Soto and then Alonso and then Vientos. So, I'd be intrigued by Brandon Nimmo. Tyler O'Neill, nah. Probably another of Corey's favorites. I'm sorry.
Well, let's just go right to him.
The heart has already stopped on once.
Tyler O'Neill is
back for seconds.
Tyler O'Neill's a specialist if you need power at that point in the draft, right? If I'm deficient in power, I will take Tyler O'Neill, know that I'm going to get my 115 to 130 games and that he can still get me 30 home runs. But the one I like is Brandon Nimmo. I hope he stays depressed in value because he's already come out and said the knee's pretty good. He thinks he's ready for opening day. He hit the ball hard last season. The average fell way off, but 90th percentile average exit velocity, barreled it up 47% of the time, still draws walks, gets on base. I kind of love Brandon Nimmo at where he's going right now, but if it creeps back up to where it was, I won't be assing on him, but I still take him at the original cost at 167. I'll still take him there, but at 193, I'm getting him in a lot of drafts. I think I've got him 2 or 3 times already in the last couple of weeks here, and I kind of love it because I think he's ready to go opening day, and I don't think the average lasts where it was last year. To me, he's another big bounce back option.
Yeah, his min and max ADPs is like 124 and like 260 something. It's a crazy range. This last like week or so, it's pretty bizarre to see that. But if I go to like the main event drafts here, I was just kind of curious what it was because those are it's actually it's lower. His ADP now it's only 4 drafts, but it is a 219 ADP.
Easy pick. That's an easy selection. If he's hurt and you have to wait, I know that the NFBC you don't get a IL, so you have to hold him on a bench, but that's fine. I said he thinks he's ready for opening day. That means at worst he's back mid-April, I think, and in a pretty good Mets lineup. I'm all in at that price, man.
All right. AJ, any thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely like Nimmo at his cost right now. Again, it pains me to say I would enjoy having a Met on my team, but I mean, he's kind of the one that I wouldn't mind having. Well, obviously Lindor too, but I really think that he
Soto
put up solid. Well, yeah, that's right, Soto too. But
you just want to pretend that never happened.
Yeah, kind of. So, yeah, I think Nimmo is he's gonna help you out in all the categories really, and he's not gonna overly hurt you in any whatever stolen bases you get out of him is great. Runs and RBIs. It showed him hitting in the cleanup on Fangraphs right now. So, having Lindor and Soto ahead of him, and then Alonso, I mean, that's a pretty solid 3 guys that can get on base. So I like the RBI numbers. I think that they can go up this year. And then, like Howard was saying, I'd love to see him drop down in the order, though, as that second leadoff kind of option. I think they will play around with their lineup some and see what works and where he fits, depending on who's healthy and who's playing. But right now, with him in the cleanup, I definitely like that. O'Neill, yeah, I mean, I like him coming to Baltimore. I'm interested to kind of watch him in person and see what he can do, but he's not, he's kind of just a guy to me.
Jag.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you guys were saying. I like the fit for O'Neill in Camden and on the Orioles. He's like a roster construction fit guy for your team.
Yeah.
And I think you guys have said that in other ways. So we can
Yep.
just move on.
Yep. All right. So hitting on another first baseman that a couple of people were higher on, and he's now fallen a bit, and that's Michael Toglia. Started the season or draft season, I guess, early ADP at 167. He's now down to 175. Howard, are you buying the Toglia?
I mean, if he's there, all right. So if I don't get a top 5 first baseman and I don't get Christian Walker or Tristan Cassis at fair value, and Toglia is there, sure, right? Like I said, everybody gets a second look if they hit in Coors Field.
Yeah.
But are the 20 to 25 home runs worth the 215 batting average? Like the strikeouts are crazy with this kid. I don't know if he's gonna, how much he's really gonna get out of it, because I mean it's just such a terrible lineup, and I don't want to sit there and sorry, I got a cat that just jumped up in my lap here.
Is he a Michael Toglia fan?
Are you a Michael Toglia fan? No, he's not a Michael Toglia fan. Again, so I would rather wait for a Ryan Mountcastle or even a Nathaniel Lowe before I bite on, taking a guy like Michael Toglia.
Yeah. And Joe had just updated this on our sheet. So he's at 190 ADP for the main event. So currently, Corey, what do you think about Togs?
There's always someone that seems to like him more than I do. I agree with Howard. The strikeout rate's terrifying to me. That yes, Coors Field will help that, but on the road, is he going to hit me 180? And at home, he's going to hit me 240, and it's kind of balance out. Yeah, I think he'll get to some power, but like he said, there's first baseman that Mountcastle's always a target of mine. Nate Lowe's a target of mine. Josh Bell, those guys go much later. I just don't ever find myself taking Michael Toglia. I think he's another like positional or category specialist. If I need power, if I feel I'm really deficient, maybe I would look at him, but it's not my cup of tea.
All right, Joe, I know you were initially higher on him, but what do you think now?
Yeah, I mean, the more I've looked at him, I've really fallen out of favor with him. People want to get, they want to fall in love with the guy who, he didn't play a full season, but he still was like a 25-10 guy, so, oh man, what could he be if he played the whole season? It doesn't work that way, guys. Like, we need to stop. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, Nolan Jones was a guy who there was no way I was taking him last year. And there was a lot of red flags in his game. And Toglia is kind of the same. Now, his draft cost isn't nearly the same as Jones was last year. But Toglia is like a guy, like, if I could figure out if there was a way that I could only play him in games where he played in Coors, sure. But that doesn't happen either. So no, I'm out.
All right.
The next player here is mine, and we go to Dodgerland again for the rare Dodger who is not rising up everybody's ADP charts, and that is third baseman Max Muncy. He was at 238. He's at 251. It looks like Joe has the new main event data here where he's at 279. I tend to like Max Muncy. Let's hear what you guys think. Howard, how do you feel about Max Muncy?
I'm okay with Max Muncy. I don't think he's going to hit you that 30 home run plateau. Again, I think that you're talking about a guy whose strikeout rate has hovered between 25 and 26%, pretty steadily over time. The power goes up and down just depending on his health. I know he's dealt with the elbow issue over and over. I mean, for the price tag, I would do it, right? I mean, just for the fact of upside of what he's done before, and the fact that he does hit in that Dodgers lineup, which is always a productive lineup. For the price, I would definitely jump in on it and be happy to take him as like a corner infielder or even a utility guy. Mm-hmm. Is he somebody who I'm like, actively targeting, no. But when I'm sitting there and I'm looking for somebody who's going to hit me some power at the corner, that he's definitely somebody to look at.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one position where I will target him is a league with OBP, like our Fantasy Six Pack series, where I targeted him in the 13th round, and he is one of my utility players because the dude still walks all the time.
And
Joe, how do you feel?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I always forget that he has a massive value spike in OBP leagues, and that league is the first OBP league I draft all year long. And I'm like, so I swung and missed on him in there. I mean, anybody batting in that Dodgers lineup, I'm happy to have at some point. The draft cost is pretty low. You've got to build your team around. If it's an average league, you've got to have a very good batting average base in order to have him on your team. I mean, I think at best we're looking at like a 220 batting average, 225 batting average. If everything were to go like perfect for him, maybe 230, 235. That's it. That's all we're getting from him. I mean, 2 out of the last 5 seasons below 200. Last year was 232. The year before that was 212. It's not going to be good. Long gone are the days where he was up in the 250s, 260s, still belting 35 home runs. Those days are long gone. You're definitely not getting any steals from him. You never did. But yeah, I mean, he's going to be batting what? I think they're projecting 7th, maybe 6th
Fifth.
Sometimes in that lineup.
We've got him 5th right now on Fangraphs.
Yeah, I mean, that's even better. I mean, like the RBI potential is through the roof with him. Even runs, because 1 through 9 in that lineup is good. So it doesn't even really matter. So, you could be looking at a 90-90 guy with, 25, 30 bombs and pick 250, 280. Yeah, okay. I'll stomach a 220 batting average at that point. You've just got to have some guys in front of him to be able to balance that out. Many guys in front of him to balance that out.
Yeah. I worry about the average for sure. I mean, I was just looking at that too. The OBP is awesome. Like that's what I'm going after.
When you walk 15% of the time.
Yeah. If I have categories or roto leagues that are average only, then no. Based on its cost, okay, fine. But I need to make that up somewhere. I know that going into it. I think 20 homers for sure is kind of his floor. But again, it depends on how much he plays. Obviously he had a lot less games last year compared to the 3 years ahead of that, where he was at 36 homers twice, 21 in between them. But, I think the 20 to 25 range is likely if he can work on that average, getting back up a little bit. If it's still down around 200 or 210, I don't know. I mean, he could be hurting you in the home runs. It's going to be just a guy at that point. So, I don't know. I'm kind of in, kind of out. Just I'm not searching for Max Muncy. Put it that way.
Way to commit, AJ.
Yes, exactly. I may or may not draft him. I don't know.
All right, last guy here on our list, and it is Carlos Correa. Has dropped from 219 to 232. Not a big drop, but just a very interesting name in my opinion. Guy, I mean, back just a couple of seasons ago, man, we would have been talking about him in the top rounds of the draft, right? Now that shortstop position is loaded, so he gets crushed plus injuries last year, and kind of on and off, and his production has plummeted. But last year, I mean, not bad when he was on the field, right? 310, 14 bombs, 50-50 running RBI. The plantar fasciitis is, I guess, still somewhat lingering, even though he says he's okay. But I mean, they're still talking about it. It means it's still a thing, right? But Howard, what's your thoughts on Correa, and are you good with the drop, or even just his ADP in general at this point?
I'm not really interested in him at all. We've seen a decline in production over the last, 5 seasons since he left Houston. He just hasn't even, remotely been the same. Like you said, it's a loaded shortstop position, so you don't need to go for a guy like that. I'd rather have a guy who's on his way up than a guy who's on his way down, and that's I'll just bypass Correa. Judging by the look on Corey's face, he's probably heavily invested in Carlos Correa, but that's probably because of his OBP.
Single team.
Howard gets me. He understands it. Yeah. Carlos Correa is he's like one of my main 3 targets at the middle infield position.
He's your 1A to Brian Reynolds.
He's like, it's like Brian Reynolds, Bo Bichette, Carlos Correa. Like that's like a 3 guaranteed players that I get in almost every draft. It feels like I get those guys in
Red Bull
every...
flavor tastes like Corey's tears. I just want you to
That's right.
We moved off my tears to Corey's tears. This is just a great show.
Well, we need something to fill your well with, right?
Why is he a target of yours? I mean, the ADP is crazy low. There's nothing special about him. He doesn't steal any bags. Yes, he's got a decent on-base percentage. Doesn't hit for much in the way of power, and it's a loaded position. So why is he your guy?
I think he hits. I push back on some of that. I think he hits for power. Half the season, he had 14 home runs. He's had a couple 20 home run seasons since he got to Minnesota there. Yes, the foot's a worry. The plantar fasciitis is a worry. I will agree with that. But when he's healthy, I think he's moving the needle. Like the 310 batting average last season. Yes, the 230 the first year, but 290 the year before that. Like I think he can provide me. I'm not going to get any steals. I'm not banking on steals out of him. So yes, you have to plan around that. But I think the runs, the homers, the ribbies, and the stolen or that batting average, I think he could be a plus in that. I think he can basically do something to 75% of what a Corey Seager can do, and I can get him 200 picks later than that. So I'm fine with Correa. I know that I'll probably eat some injuries in there, but when he's on the field, I think he's going to perform.
AJ?
That is an opinion.
I'll eat it. Whatever.
No, I don't. I'm out on Correa. I've kind of been out on him for the past few years. I don't disagree with your arguments too much, Corey. Like the average, I can get behind a little bit there. It's not going to totally crush you unless he comes back with a 230 again. But I think he is better than that. So I'll give him credit for the average. But there's still the decline in the runs, the ribbies, and I know he's not helping you in steals. Shit, he hasn't even had a stolen base since 2019. So that doesn't help you. Yeah, it's a super low draft, cost. So I can get it as a potential dart throw and get behind it there, but not someone I'm overly, trying to seek out. If he starts getting hot and, he's someone I might keep on a watch list and kind of pay attention to and try to, strike, ahead of everybody else. And then, do one of the typical, oh, this guy's super hot, trade, pawn him off on someone else. But yeah.
When like Howard was talking about earlier, how he goes bats early and then, or how it's typical to go bats early and then pitchers. That's the way I want to play it. But then when I want to jump back in, I want someone who I think could be a difference maker. And in the 15th round or wherever Correa is going, I think he could deliver. If you got 130 games out of Correa, would anybody be completely shocked if he had 90 runs, 25 homers, 90 ribbies, and hit 290? Is that completely out of the realms?
I mean, I'm not going to say it's completely out of the realms.
Yeah.
It's not a zero chance.
Yeah. I think there's, if you got 130 games, I think that's 10% chance of happening. So in the 15th round, I'll take that.
I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like when his name popped on the list here, I was like, wait a minute, have I seen his name in drafts? Like I just gloss over it every single time it pops up in my draft rooms, apparently. So I kind of thought his draft cost was even lower. So
I think he was one of my highlights. And I was like, wow, all right, he's falling.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, it's an interesting thing. I mean, and if you really like it, if you want to play the, let's project out the season he had last year to a full season. We'd be talking a different story here with him, because that was a hell of a half a season from him. We'd be talking about roughly 26, 28 home runs with a 300 batting average. We'd be having a different conversation with him, but he got hurt. So I get it. I can't go back in, and I'm probably going to have. I think the biggest thing in Howard, you brought this up. I've got my shortstop in my middle infield probably locked up by the time it gets around to him, so I don't even need to worry about it. And that's probably why I haven't even noticed him in draft rooms, because I'm done. I'm done with that position at this point. I don't even have to worry about it. I'm looking elsewhere. Filling outfield, filling the back end of my pitching staff. We're moving on. So
yeah.
All right. So that is it for the show. Some ADP risers and fallers. Howard, thank you again for coming on. Before we close up shop here, let everybody know where they can find you and what you got going on there.
Let's see. Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. You can hear me with Jim Bowden and Andrew Cooper on the Fantasy Alarm Show. You can find me all over the pages at fantasyalarm.com. You can also find me in the New York Post on the weekends, writing fantasy columns for baseball and football over there. So, and at Rotobuzz Guy, you see that right there. Mm-hmm. Follow me everywhere.
Yeah, good stuff, man. All right. Thanks again for coming on, and good luck in any remaining drafts you got for the season.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate the time.
All right. Thanks, Howard. Always a pleasure.
All right. So that is it for the show. Next week, we are moving our show to Wednesday so that AJ and I can go. We can all make sure we're watching some March Madness on Thursday. We always forget to move that show. Luckily, we figured it out ahead of time this year. But we are going to be bringing on Jason Martinez from Roster Resource and Fangraphs to talk some spring training position battles, some, projection with roster cuts and things like that you need to know about before your final drafts, the final draft weekend before the start of the season. It's always a great show to get into that kind of information. So
we'll have real baseball to talk about too. 2 games will be done.
That's true.
That is true. Yeah. Those the Dodgers Cubs games.
Sosaki will be pitching in one of them.
Sosaki, Yamamoto, Imanaga, and the non-Japanese pitcher for the Cubs who I don't remember. Maybe Justin Steele.
Is it going to be Steele?
I don't remember.
I know he's been dealing with
I just know there's 3 Asian pitchers and 1 non-Asian pitcher.
All right. Okay. All right. That's it for the show. Good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.